Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Community Resources and Tourism Committee meeting. And we're going to get underway here, so we'll start out with a roll call. Looks like everybody's here. So moving on to approval of the minutes.
I'll move approval.
Spencer will second. Monica's got first. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Public comment?
Yes, we do have one public comment from Terry Nichols from the town of Colfax. Terry wrote, as I read the minutes from the last meeting relating to the website and maybe partnering with the city of Menominee and knowing that there are tools to monitor the activity of the website, it took me to a whole different thought about utilization. I'm talking about physical space such as classrooms and other spaces with technology such as computer labs, etc. Chippewa Valley Technical College is remodeling their building in Menominee. The $1.5 million remodeling project is being paid for by the property taxpayers in their district. That's you and me. I think they are renting some space in the county, if I'm not mistaken now. I was also told by Dan Little, building leader, that this building also houses dual enrollment with the Menominee School District and career clusters. Only the School District of Menominee. I will be attaching a drawing of the new remodel for reference. For years, I attended CVTC board meetings. I also retired from UW Stout in 2014. I know that the physical plant departments of the UW colleges have what they call a list of all spaces on a university campus and what it is used for, such as classrooms, labs, office spaces, and the list goes on. At one of CVTC's past board meetings, I asked Bruce Barker, president at the time, if CVTC had such a list. The answer was no, and he didn't plan to have this information. It took the board some time before one of the members had the light go on and stated it was like how many passengers on an airplane have seats and what was the seating capacity of the airplane. I bring this up because if a building has classrooms, what does the classroom utilization look like for all the classrooms in the building? Is there a possibility that the county could use these classrooms in this Menominee CVTC building? In a comprehensive plan approach, this would be called intergovernmental cooperation, right? I believe Dunn County is updating their comp plan as I write these comments. Would there be opportunities for UW extension? I could go on with other suggestions. My intent is to say buildings cost a lot of money and maintenance of buildings is costly after they're built as well. Why wouldn't this approach be worth pursuing, especially when so much of the financial resources are taxpayers' dollars? Terry Nichols, Town of Colfax.
Thank you, Melissa. Extension staff reports.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry I'm not able to be there in person, but I'm just looking at the agenda here in terms of, yeah, so I'll give my report first. I noticed in the background, in the little dot in the back, that Garrett is in the back, so I wanted to do a formal introduction of Garrett Zastapil. Garrett is our new community development educator. I talked a little bit about him last month as well, but you get to see him in person tonight. So I'm sure he'll also give a little bit of an overview of during his presentation part, but just wanted to bring Garrett to the forefront and welcome him to Dunn County. I didn't tell Garrett I was going to do that, so good sport, Garrett. The other thing I wanted to bring up is in your packets, I added, again, this was in your packet last month as well as an overview of an introductory, but we have been asked to bring it forward for you to take a look at and give input. So it's the County Partnership Guidance document. A little bit of background with this document. It was put together in 2021. in partnership with the Wisconsin Counties Association. The committee was WEXA at the time. And Supervisor Bajork may remember that that committee. WEXA then came now to another subcommittee of WCA. And so in partnership with them, we put together this guidance document. And it's under revision. We're moving forward with a revision process with it. We wanted to not only hear from those that are representing the counties association on the new committee for extension, but we also wanted to hear from our partners and committee members out in, across Wisconsin. And so I put that document into your packet for your review to look at and to really kind of go through and does this make sense? Is this what I envision a partnership with extension to look like? Are there things missing? Now, obviously, this is not a one size fits all. And so things that are in here may not pertain to Dunn County. This is not a policy document. It's not an MOU. It is it's a guidance document. It's just a way for us to talk about the unique partnership that we have with you all. So if you had the opportunity to look through it and you would like to make some comments now, that would be fantastic. If not, I would ask that maybe at the next committee meeting, I'll put it on the agenda again for you to react, or in the interim, if you wanted to reach out to me either to have a conversation or if you have some specific things you just want to email me, that's fine as well. Chris Corpola has also received this as a copy, as have the other administrators in Area 6. So they have reviewed and looking through the document as well to give their feedback. So so that's what that agenda is, and that's what that document is in the agenda or in the packet. So so I'd welcome any questions or comments at this point.
May I ask a question?
Yep, go right ahead.
Absolutely.
I have a question. It's about the financials. The line near the top that says revenue, public charges. The 2024 projected is about half of what was budgeted. I was wondering if you could say a few words about that.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Are you on a certain page? Are you looking at the guidance partnership document?
No, I'm looking at the financials. How do I just, what is this called? Somebody, what can I call this? This is like, okay.
Yeah, the financial from January to May.
Oh, okay. So you shifted gears on me, Supervisor.
I'm
Barrett.
sorry.
That's okay. So I'm sorry. So now that I have that as my reference, what was your question again?
Okay. So the line for revenue public charges, the projected for 2024 is about half of what was budgeted. And I was just wondering if you could say a few words about what happened there.
In terms of what we brought in for revenue, that it's half of what we've projected for the year?
The projected is the total 2024 projected is about half of what was budgeted according to this. And so I'm just wondering what the reason for that shortfall is.
For revenues? Well, so for our revenues, so we try to project what we might be bringing in for revenues, and it could depend on programming, it could depend on some state programs, and so we try to do a projection, an accurate projection. We've been trying to actually figure out because we've had some signature programs that have gone to the state, such as pesticide applicator, that brought in quite a bit of revenue in the past. That has now gone to a state entity, or within extension, but through the state. And so we don't bring in that revenue at this point. So any revenue that we may say that we may have put on there for 2024, that we will not be expending that. And so it won't have an impact on the overall budget. And we're trying to align that. Actually, we've talked about that in terms of the 2025 budget, again, looking at that and aligning what revenues are we bringing in, and trying to, I don't know, right the ship on that one to figure out exactly what our revenue generation is. Does that make
Okay.
sense? Did I answer? Okay, good.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Melissa, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
That was exactly what I was going to say as well. And also the county budget spreadsheet it's a little challenging to put our little finances into it. And sometimes it looks different than how it looks on our actual spreadsheets within the department. I'll be curious to see what it looks like when we run it again next month.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. That was a great question.
Any more questions for Krista? All right, we'll continue on. And County Extension Programs, educational overviews. I don't know who goes first here, so.
So I just want to do an introduction to this part. So last month, I brought forward that wide overview of what extension and our partnership and roles, that bird's eye view. This month, you get the fun stuff. You don't get to listen to me. You get to listen to all the educators and all of the great stuff that's going on, and a high level overview of their programming to give you an idea of the needs and how they're reaching those needs. And so the educators have put together a PowerPoint, and I'm going to hand it over to whoever is first on that PowerPoint. So thank you all for working through that. So Jerry is first.
All right, thanks everyone for the opportunity to present a brief overview of my program with the Crops and Soils program within the Agriculture Institute. Quite a bit of my programming connects directly to local needs and also combine that to what the state is looking for. So from the program side of things, we have a number of programs that relate to forage and grain management. So again, kind of the field crop type of things that we can address through our programming. And so some of the working primarily within, corn, soybeans, alfalfa, those kind of crops. But we've also spent quite a bit of time on emerging crops. So again, things like winter barley, industrial hemp, kernza. We've worked with hops, those kind of crops that might be not addressed as much at the UW at Madison as much as maybe we can out locally where there's a little bit more of a specific need for it. And then nutrient management and the profitability, the economic side of it as well. And so primarily my focus has been on the nitrogen management side since working in all three counties. There's an issue that we deal with nitrates and groundwater. So trying to deal with some of the nitrogen management side of things as far as manure management and commercial nitrogen application. So we've done some work on that as far as identifying a need moving forward. And then, like I said, the emerging crops and cropping systems and how some of these new emerging crops might fit into an existing system that farmers may be able to provide. There might be an opportunity there to look at double cropping types of systems, potentially cover crops that might protect the soil a little more, maybe harvest some of that nitrogen that might be sitting on the soil so it doesn't enter our groundwater system. So looking at total cropping system pieces as well. And then that profitability connecting to grain marketing as well as the input management. So we know farmers operate on a pretty tight margin from what they spend on their cropping systems and what they get out of it from selling, whether they're running that through livestock, dairy industry, or selling it directly on a grain market. We've done some grain marketing work as well in order to provide that kind of comprehensive cycle to bring that back to the farm. And you can go to the next slide there, Melissa. And so then the educational programming, my role is works in two areas, educational programs and then on-farm research. And so quite a bit of the educational programs, they're in the field, workshops, kind of classroom types of things. We also provide some statewide webinars. The Badger Crop Connect is throughout the summer season, about every other week during the growing season, Focus on Forage is more of a winter program to get farmers some information on specifically growing feed for their livestock. Like I said, we've done grain marketing workshops. We've converted that into an online course as well. And then the pesticide applicator training, a lot of the revenue has been moved to the state side, but we still offer the training part of it here locally and train roughly 30 farmers or applicators within a single county. And then part of my appointment is also to have about 25% research. So we do quite a bit of on-farm research, especially in the summer. So again, that nitrogen management, we do have a little plot right out here at the Dunn County demo farm that we've implemented this summer. Like I said, some of the emerging crops we're working with specifically to see if they fit into a system here in Dunn County. And then some of the cropping system things, like I said, alfalfa interseeding, just some different ways that we can maybe grow additional forage without having to wait an additional year. So trying to work on crop rotations and cropping systems. And then, of course, cover crops and how that fits into a specific system for farmers. So that's kind of a nutshell of what I do in terms of the educational programs and some of the on-farm research that we're kind of expected to do.
Any questions for
You
Jerry?
bet. Jerry?
Yeah.
My questions are all focused around nitrogen
Sure.
and, the people in agriculture, everybody knows that nitrogen leaches, which means that, passes through the soil structure, if not used. So, I'd like to know with the excessive rain that we've had, are farmers experiencing nitrogen leaching, and will they be trying to make an application of, they will always do additional nitrogen, but will you think that second nitrogen or even that third nitrogen application will be at a greater rate? And then the other thing, can you, or is it done as far as the amount of nitrogen that is not used by the cover crop and the plant? Can that be determined? So I can understand where if you have whole plant corn silage and you have so much tonnage comes off, you can pretty easily calculate, I would think, how much nitrogen was used to produce those many tons of corn. But can you equally on the grain determine how much nitrogen is there a formula on how much nitrogen is used to produce a certain amount of grain? And then your fall interseeding or your cover crop seeding, let's say back on that corn stubble, can that be measured to the amount of nitrogen that is used by that cover crop? So you've got A, what goes on, you got B, what's comes off with the crop you're harvesting, and you got C, the cover crop to gobble up and nitrogen and make organic matter.
Yeah. So as far as what's happened this spring with the excessive rain, that nitrogen that was applied earlier, there's a chance that that's leached just because of the amount of rainfall. If farmers haven't applied yet, that's probably a good thing because they're going to need to probably add some extra. Some of that also depends if it was manure or legume credits, those kind of things, because they take time to mineralize in the soil. So they're not always available to the plant, and that's usually when they're available to leach. So there can be a difference there depending on the type of nitrogen that's being used. So again, it depends on what source of nitrogen the farmer's banking on. If it's manure or legume credits, odds are there's quite a bit of that left in the soil. If it's commercial nitrogen, that converts relatively quickly and can be available to leach. So there'll be more additional nitrogen added. It depends what the weather does, moving forward. As far as a fall cover crop, the nitrogen in what's been used by the crop, what we do is look at the soil nitrate content at the end of the season. So we can get a pretty good idea of what that crop has used. If we look at how much was available at the beginning of the season, maybe what was added in terms of manure or commercial nitrogen. And then at the end of the season, we can look at soil nitrate levels and see what's left. We lose a lot of that nitrate in the fall and the winter months, before the next crop starts. So that's where the cover crop comes in to maybe hold some of that in place. And then in the spring, that has been tied up and isn't as available to leach out. So we can measure what was applied, and we call it nitrogen use efficiency. So again, what was the total nitrogen available? What did the crop pull out? What is a cover crop going to use? And then what's left over is what's that potential for leaching. So again, all of this depends on the cropping system, the soil type, and as well as how much nitrogen's been available, say at the beginning of the season, or what was stored in the soil prior to the growing season starting. So yes, we can measure these things. It's best to do it right up front or kind of understand all of these factors that go into that input side of it.
I hate looking at yellow corn.
There's a lot of it this year.
Okay, thank you very
Yep,
much.
Yep, thank you.
Any further questions for Jerry? I think Margaret's up next.
Hi, again, thank you for letting us tell you a little bit about our programs. I am Margaret Murphy. I work in horticulture. A lot of people wonder what is horticulture, and actually it's a very broad term. It covers everything from seeding in a plant to selling a plant. But horticulture is the connection between people and plants, and it supports environmental stewardship, human wellness, and the growing of local foods. Specifically in our program, both locally as well as statewide, we focus on strategies to mitigate environmental challenges such as environmental pollution, as well as pollinator decline. I also provide guidance on building sustainable landscapes and educate about the health and well-being benefits that being around plants or gardening provide. If you can go to the next slide. Thanks, Melissa. So a few of the services I provide in Dunn County include, and I do this for all 3 counties, is I provide assistance to the public with their yard, garden, and landscape questions. And I usually answer several hundred questions throughout the year, just one-on-one with people who have questions about landscape design to diagnostics of what's wrong with my plant. We also, a group of us here in Dunn County, put together a native pollinator garden, and you might have seen it as you come into the building. The plants are on steroids. They've gotten huge with all this rain. And so we put in this native pollinator garden in front of the building to demonstrate both the benefits and the beauty of native plants or adding native plants to your landscape. And the reason we want to do that is to support pollinators and to support them year round, because it's very critical that we do support by providing habitat to our pollinators, because at least 70% of all our flowering plants depend on an insect or an animal pollinator. And according to the USDA, about 35% of the world food crop depend on an insect or animal pollinator. And unfortunately, right now, according to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, about 70% of our pollinators are in danger, in some kind of threat or in decline. So it's a real threat that we need to address. Lastly, I wanted to mention our youth gardening opportunities. That's another area I work in Dunn County. I work with the Boys and Girls Club, and I work both with elementary aged kids as well as middle school aged kids. And I partner with FoodWise on those programs. And there's a lot of research out there that supports that how gardening can really enrich a child's life, and in many ways. And besides getting them outdoors and exercising and away from their screens, it can also help by being in the garden. It really teaches or enhances a variety of skills, including concentration and focus, teaches them responsibility, helps teach them patience and nurturing, as well as, excuse me. And one thing I see in the garden quite often is it really does enhance their ability to cooperate with each other. It really does increase cooperation. So those are some of the highlights that I do for Dunn. And again, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Do you work with the students and to get them to the stuff to a farmer's market somewhere? I mean, do you actually get them to show them how to do that?
Oh, to teach them how to grow plants and then go through and sell to market.
Yeah.
I haven't so far here in Wisconsin. I did do a program similar to that when I was working as a hort educator in Iowa. So I like that idea though. So yeah, that's something I can pursue with the schools, and I can talk with the Boys and Girls Director to see if that's a program they'd like to do. Yeah.
Go ahead, Larry.
I had the great opportunity of taking my grandson to the middle school. And of course, you see the same line of cars every day, but I also see that garden setup that they have there at what do they call it? This one? Well, the middle school right down the road.
Yeah.
And I mean, you got a perfect little spot there. And then the farmers have found out that having a mild winter, that little buggers like alfalfa weevils really enjoy eating farmers' alfalfa. Have you had any larger push of insects that usually you haven't seen, or?
Good question. Not so far with insects. We've been seeing more when we have a lot of rain, especially in the spring and it's cool weather, we start to see a real increase in fungal diseases. So we're seeing a lot of fungal diseases, particularly apple scab came out early, came on strong. But I'm curious myself to see what the Japanese beetles will bring out this summer when they start showing up and things like that. But right now, it's just really what we're getting reports on are more foliar fungal diseases. Yeah.
My tomato plants look like Hiroshima.
Well, and that's the other thing too with all the wet soil. If your soil isn't draining well, I've had a couple of people talk to me about multiple crop failures, and I think a lot of that is due to just staying too wet too long. I know I've had to replant a couple of my crops as well because of this lovely rain. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions for Margaret? Seeing none, we'll move on.
All right. Ooh, excuse me. I guess I am next. Hello, everyone. My name's Garrett Sastapol. This is week 6 on the job, so I don't have a lot to report on what I've actually been up to, but I figured I'd give you all a chance to get to know me a little bit and what I'm hoping to do in this role as I continue to do my needs assessment. So I started in May. Previously, I was an assistant professor of sustainable rural economic development at Northland College up in Ashland, Wisconsin. We had an interesting spring up there, and so this is the next career as a community development educator. Largely, I see the work of community development as working with community members to help identify and define problems and opportunities in the communities that they live in, and then come together to solve them with the goal of making our communities more sustainable. And when I talk about sustainability, I mean 3 different ways of looking at it. So one, socially, so how are we making sure it's a community for everyone? Right? That means, are we making sure that folks who need walkers or wheelchairs can get around our Main Street districts, right? Is it economically sustainable so that if someone wants to stay in that community after they graduate from high school, they have the chance to do so? And then is it environmentally sustainable? So are we making sure that we're caring for the natural resources so that our kids or our grandkids can take care of or can be in the community and enjoy the amenities that we have right now? So that's kind of my approach and what I'm taking into this work. I don't know, Melissa, if you want to do the next slide. Themes or kind of programs that are emerging right now, and you see a couple of images from work that I did up north. Largely, my role is going to be working with both local governments as well as nonprofit and community organizations to help them build capacity to better do their work, so to achieve their mission and impact. So whether that's strategic planning, evaluation, working with boards to do some training, that's all going to be part of the work that I do. Second is going to be facilitating community conversations as issues tend to emerge in communities or even before they come up, and really beginning to bring the relevant parties to the table to begin having some early conversations. And then last, one of the things that's already emerging is the need to have some leadership around these kind of wicked problems that are facing both our local communities and also communities across the state and around the nation. So whether that's housing, broadband, potentially daycare or childcare, those are all things that I at least foresee myself not necessarily leading on, but bringing the folks to the table and holding the space for us to have some impact to move the needle on these issues. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me. Once again, it's week 6, so haven't done anything yet besides attend a lot of meetings, but am excited to continue pushing forward with this.
Go ahead, Larry.
Garrett,
Yeah.
you're a communicator. You have diction and you have the voice.
Thanks. Thanks, Larry.
You need to be on the radio telling people what you're doing.
Okay.
Right, Jerry?
That's right.
I've always got a spot for a guy.
That's right.
I'm kidding. I'm serious.
Okay.
Yeah. Congratulations for being born with those good pipes.
And Larry should know.
That's right.
Yeah, welcome and thanks for coming. Just wondering, how are you spending your time and how can we help you connect with things we think are important in Dunn County that are on the screen?
It's a great question. So I think I have an open door. I can leave my card with you all. And more than happy to meet with you all one-on-one, or, in groups, whatever that looks like. Right now, I'm in the process of conducting a needs assessment. So starting really slow, but meeting first with the colleagues here in Extension and then slowly with other relevant stakeholders in the county. So you all are obviously relevant stakeholders with the goal of really seeing kind of what comes up as the top issues, challenges, or opportunities. I had the chance to go to Rothschild last week with Louisa and then Paula Winter, the Director of Human Services for Dunn County. And that was really a great opportunity to learn more through kind of informal conversation of what's going on in the county. But obviously y'all are have better expertise in the needs and challenges in the community and opportunities than I do. So
Where are you based? Which office?
Eau Claire.
Okay. Thanks.
Any further questions for Garrett? Seeing none, we'll move on to health and well-being.
Okay, good afternoon. So Sandy Tarter, the FoodWise Coordinator for Dunn, Chippewa, and Eau Claire counties. Again, I've been here about 15 and a half years, have really good experience with this program, and we've made some real quite impacts. But I'm going to hand it over to Joy, Jael, and Hillary, who will be on screen so they can introduce themselves, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm Joy Weisner. I'm a FoodWise nutrition educator for both Eau Claire and Dunn counties. And I've been lucky enough to be in this role for 17 years. So thank you for having us.
Hello, my name is Jael. I have been with FoodWise for 2 years, and I'm the bilingual nutrition educator.
Hi, I'm Hillary Roth. I'm out of the Chippewa office, but I also serve Dunn County, and I've been in Extension and with FoodWise for about 1.5 years.
Okay, as you see on the screen, I'll tell you a little bit about FoodWise. And it starts out that we're saying we're federally funded by the SNAP. SNAP is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. We are the education arm of that program, so they call us SNAP Ed. And our funding comes down from the Farm Bill, which is currently being discussed at the federal level. So all I can say about that is right now that the Farm, Food, and National Security Act of 2024, aka the Farm Bill, was released. We have the House of Representative Committee on Ag put forth their edits and suggestions, and the Senate Committee on Ag will do the same. They will discuss it over. There's about 50 amendments, and there's always, great debates, right? And SNAP is usually one of those great debates, the funding, the eligibility for SNAP and so forth. SNAP Ed, we've been cut in our budgets, but not cut out. So I don't expect there to be any changes to our program in terms of FTE and whatnot. So because of that federal funding, we have to meet our federal guidance and assurances, and that is that we are outreaching to low-income families within our counties. And so you can turn to the next. We do that in a number of ways. We just like all the other educators here in Extension, we outreach, we look at needs assessments, we talk to partners, we find out their needs, and we provide nutrition education to meet those needs. One of the differences, though, is that we have to work with agencies who are verifying their income eligibility. So unfortunately, we're not open to the community at large or one-on-ones, but we do work within those agencies. And so some of the agencies we work with, as you see here, might be schools in their county, schools that are 50% or more have free and reduced lunch rate participation. Here in Dunn County, that's usually been River Heights. And we've found out that Downsville was above and below that borderline of 50%. So they're back on board potentially. We also work with Head Starts 4K programs. We work in transition homes such as Bridge to Hope, which is a shelter for domestic abuse. We work with other community organizations. In Dunn County here, we work with Stepping Stones as well. And so we work with the participants by learner-centered approaches. So we're really trying to meet people where they're at in terms within these agencies, and we bring them together and we really work hard to use we have evidence research-based curriculum, and we really work to see what are their issues, what do they want to know, and we help them to learn from each other as well during our lessons. We focus on nutrition education, food safety, and then also how do you stretch those food dollars. So some food resource management type ideas. And the educators are super busy. We plan our year about 6 months in advance. And so educators are putting out about 250 to 270 direct teaching events. And so when we had some major budget cuts in 2018, we did have a Dunn County educator who retired. We could not rehire that position. So Joy, Jael, and Hillary, we took back from their counties and they come over to Dunn to help teach our events here. So that's how we all work together to cover all 3 counties. And I think that might be enough for now. Any questions?
You mentioned in your talk about My Plate guidelines. What are the My Plate guidelines?
Oh, I would love to sit down and talk to you about the My Plate guidelines. So this is the USDA comes forth with this. You may have seen the round picture of My Plate with the different colors, and there's grains and proteins and fruits and vegetables and dairy. We teach those basics of what is needed from 4-year-olds to seniors in any of those food groups, right? So that's kind of the My Plate basics. What is needed for health? And yeah, we give lots of examples. We do taste testing whenever we possibly can with our little ones in our schools, and we do food prep for certain groups. And we, like Bridge to Hope, we utilize their pantry to show them how do you use the pantry and can you make a nutritious meal out of that for your family while stretching your food dollars. So those are some of the things that we teach, and of course food safety along with that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Seeing none, we'll move on to human development, relationships.
Hey, folks. I'm doing a quick introduction to myself, and then I have a slide about what I'm up to. Just because I haven't met all of you yet or worked with you, I just wanted to let you know I grew up here in Dunn County. I went to Menominee High School, went away for college, came back home, got married, had children, still living on my family farm. We switched from dairy to beef. and we're doing rotationally grazed beef, and my husband and my sister are in charge of that while I'm working here. And I have a master's degree in leadership, which I got later in life, so that was a big deal for me. Been with Extension since 2018, but I did start out in 4-H and positive youth development, where my colleague Zach is now ably leading the charge. And so I have been in the human development and relationships, specifically concentrating on family education and relationships for a couple years here. And my mission is to connect our families in Dunn County, our Dunn County residents, with high quality family education and resources. Next slide, please. Okay, so how do we do that? We do it through several different ways. One is obviously classes. So we're doing parenting education. And when I say we, I often co-facilitate with people from other counties or from completely across the state, depending upon how the class is offered. So for Dunn County, we have court-ordered parenting classes for parents who are getting divorced and have children that they are going to share custody of. And that is typically required for every single parent that divorces, which means I have pretty good chance of staying employed because it appears that people are still getting divorced fairly regularly, although my understanding is the divorce rate has kind of leveled off a little bit, which is good news, I think. We have classes for parents in our jail. In the effort to help them understand how brain development works for infants, the importance of interacting with their children. And those are really interesting classes, which I've talked about at length and show up in my report, so I won't go into that too much. It is really important for children to bond with their caregivers. You probably all know that. It's called attachment theory. When a baby cries, somebody needs to pick it up. And with the crisis that we have in childcare center staffs right now, we are having a lot of turnover. We also have a shortage in childcare, and I'm starting to lose sleep at night about what will happen to our infants if they don't have that good attachment and good bonding to the people who care for them 8, 9, 10 hours a day while their parents are both working. So we are working on the desert that we have in Dunn County for childcare. And I'm also collaborating, the next line there, collaborating with community on things like housing, which is also at a crisis level right now, and working in several county work groups, and also have been working regionally with a United Way merger. That merger is happening July 1. And I'm very excited about it because they also emphasize our new group will be serving 6 counties and will be emphasizing early childhood education, as well as financial things which would, I think, impact housing in our area as well. And then I serve on a whole bunch of statewide teams, which I will not read to you because they are up there, and I often report on things that I'm doing that are related to that. But I do want to say that Dunn County rose to the top in our statistics recently. From January to May of this year, Dunn County residents took so many classes that we were ranked number 4 in the state for online class participation. I guess I don't need to remind you, we don't have a huge population compared to, say, Dane County. So I'm feeling very proud of that. And the Human Development and Relationships Institute is offering over 50 classes statewide. And right now, I think the count is 74. So our residents have that availability to take classes that are appropriate for the age of the young people in their home. And we're also offering registry credit for our people who work in childcare centers, don't get paid very much, but have to often pay for their own education. So those registry credits offered through Extension are significantly more affordable and are also evidence-based classes. So I feel like the ripple effect from the work that we're doing in human development and relationships across the state is really profound because we're hitting people at those early ages where they're struggling with parenting, where they need a place to live, and we're trying to impact that in Dunn County. And I will ask that you guys all think as board members carefully about anything coming up before you in the coming year that has to do with expanding housing. It's much easier to say no to any changes because I know our community sometimes doesn't like change, but if we don't change things, we are really headed for big trouble with a capital T when it comes for homes for our elderly folks who are trying to retire and maybe simplify and have smaller houses, for our families who are getting married and having children, for our workforce that does not have a place to live and therefore commutes to Dunn County to have a job. And of course, for the people who are just struggling to start out, maybe right after high school, trying to afford rent here. Thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to working with all of you. You know where I work. Feel free to contact me.
Any questions? Are you gonna be able to maintain the vice president with during the merge of all these other counties?
The lovely thing is I don't have to. So I am, as of July 1, I will be taking off the mantle of president-elect and vice president for United Way of Dunn County. And we are merging and becoming the St. Croix and Red Cedar Valleys United Way. So that will be serving all the western neighbors that are, in the bunches of us just to the west, and then also Dunn and Pepin. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to send me an email or call me on the phone. I'd love to talk to you about what we've got going on. So
Thank you. Any
Thank you.
questions? All right, I guess Zach is up next.
All right, thank you. Just to start off with, I want to apologize for not dressing nicer. We just got done fishing with about 15, I'd say 4 through 8-year-olds. And no one got hooked and no one fell in. So I think no one caught a fish either, but hey, little victories. Anyway, so I'm Zach. I'm the 4-H educator. Anne is not here with us today. She is the program assistant. She started, sometime this spring. Her role is taking on a couple projects for us, like the website, Facebook, and also some like more behind the scenes sort of things, like she's helping organize the awards for the Leaders Council, and just little things like that help free me up to do more programming and hands-on things with the youth and the volunteers. And Mac is here, and I'll let him introduce himself.
All right. Hello, my name is Mac Duff. I'm the summer intern, and I'm here to help Zach with the whole lot of summer programming we have. So I have a background in human development and family study, and I have worked at a summer camp for 4 years. And I have a lot of experience with youth and youth development. And being here, I can be Zach's assistant, and I can help him free up the time that he has. And some of the things I do are help to run the day camps we have going on. We have 3 day camps where we have a day camp that's 3 days. Happening in July, and then we have another 3-day day camp happening in August. And I help to make calls, emails, organize other events, and just a general assistant when operating any of our programs, any of our promotional booths. If he needs me to do something because he's busy, I'm usually there to do it.
That is so small. Okay, just a little overview of 4-H in general. So we are part of the Positive Youth Development Institute, or PYD. 4-H is one of the branches off of there. A few things about it is that it is a research-based youth development organization. I think that makes it pretty special, that things from anywhere from like the club meetings that they go to the projects we plan, there's been thought and research put into everything that 4-H does. And one thing that they do is they like to promote the developmental and long-term outcomes. So for example, like the fishing event we just did, we want them to have fun and learn how to fish, but we also want to teach them things like perseverance as they practice casting and they can't get it right away. So we're really focused on those life goals, life skills that they have there as well. It's project-based. We have over 100 different projects that 4-H offers. And it is the largest youth serving organization in the nation. I think that's pretty special. And a couple of things that we really focus on is creating adult youth partnerships, youth leadership, and allowing the youth to explore the special interests that they have. Next, I got one more slide. I did an extra one. I did because we did, anyways, because I'm special. So just a couple facts about Dunn County 4-H in general. Right now, we have about 320 total youth and volunteers enrolled. It is really volunteer driven. The clubs are led by volunteers. A lot of the projects that we do are led by volunteers. A lot of the project days are led by volunteers. So it's really volunteer driven with that aspect. We still have 12 community clubs in Dunn County and 7 different projects that are chartered as project clubs. Some of the top projects that we have for the county: art, photography, Clover Buds. Those are our youngest members. It's more like a exploratory time for them in 4-H, where they can explore different types of projects. Foods and nutrition, and swine. And just kind of qualitatively, some of the things that I've seen that have gone very well in the county that we've done in the past couple years. We do a Art U program, which is a collaboration. It's throughout the entire area. So it's Chippewa and Eau Claire, but we collaborate with the UW Star Art Education Program, and they have their students teach lessons virtually to the youth. That's been very popular for Dunn County youth. The Battle of the Clubs is an event that we brought back again this year. I think 2019 was the last time they did it, and it was met with good response this year. We started last year a race night with the Red Cedar Speedway. They gave all the 4-H members free admission, and we got to go on the field and say a pledge and things like that. So that was really popular. And then the last project day that we did for the Lego project day was 2 weeks ago. We had 17 youth join that one. So these project days that we do during the summer in general are just becoming more and more popular. Okay, any questions? Larry?
Well, I just want, I'm just happy you got Mac. He looks just like the guy we're gonna need for many different things. And one thing I'd like to have him to be aware of and take note of as it's happening, because sometimes you miss things that are right in front of your face. And we'll be gonna having the Dunn County Fair coming up. And I want you to keep a mental awareness of the interaction between 4-H club leaders and their project kids. Last night, I was lucky enough to be taking a grandson to the 4-H dog project, which was held indoors because the pull-up door broke across from the old highway shop building right up here by the fairgrounds, or the rec park, or whatever you want to call it. And the head leader of there's Sandy, and she had 2 helpers. And if you happen to look in the fair book and see the number of different activities that one kid can do with the dog, all the way from showmanship to dressing them up and different rally events. But these leaders are outstanding. And she meets with those kids, I think, already every Monday night for probably the last 5 or 6 Monday nights, and they go tell the Dunn County Fair. And out and about the county, you've got leaders, helping kids in their clubs with many different things. So if you come away with one thing with University Extension, see that relationship between 4-H leaders and the kids, and it will make you a better person. Okay, thank you. Glad you're here.
Any further questions? Okay, we'll move on then. Written report discussion.
Then there's me.
I was waiting for.
It's all right. It's all good. So in addition to being the recording secretary for CRNT, I am also the outreach support associate for Extension Dunn County. A little bit of background, I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Fine Photography, and I also owned an art studio and worked in landscaping for about 14 years before going back to school, and where I received a second bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Science in Natural Resource Management and Environmental Education. I taught at a few different places, taught environmental ed, and was lucky enough to end up here at Extension Dunn County in February of 23. And I'm very pleased to be here. So what does an outreach support associate do? It's a great question. I do a whole bunch of things. So a really big part of my job is actually just connecting the community with the resources that Extension has to offer. So you just heard about all these amazing educators we have in this area, right? Whenever someone calls the office or emails or walks in with questions, I get to connect that person from the community to these excellent educators and or to educators throughout the state, if there's not someone here that specializes in exactly what their question is. I've had, like Larry said, alfalfa weevils have been a big thing this year. So I have had a lot of phone calls about alfalfa weevils. So I've had a lot of connection, especially with like PJ Leash, our extension entomologist at the Madison location, talking about things like that. In addition to just talking with everyone that comes in, I get to help folks with things like soil sample kits, equipment checkout, county plat book sales, farm record books, and I also manage the office itself. So a lot of inventory control, helping with whatever the educators need to support their programming. I handle the departmental finances. And again, just really helping the educators with their programming, whatever support they need. So administrative support, like helping with registrations, printing and mailing flyers or newsletters or certificates, ordering supplies and fielding programming questions. As Margaret mentioned, I also helped a little bit with the native plant garden out front. I also helped to support the Menominee Community Garden right here in the city, and among many other things that make every day different and interesting. Any questions?
It looks like none, so move on to item 6, economic development update.
This is where my part starts, huh? Yeah, pretty much. So the Dunn County Economic Development Corporation is actually meeting upstairs right now. So so they they're having their meeting right now. They partnership oversight group, which, so we've talked about this in the past. There's Greater Menominee Economic Development, the Stout Tech Park, UW Stout, City of Menominee, Dunn County Economic Development, and Dunn County are all working together, as well as West Central Regional Planning, are working together to create a economic development coordinator that will oversee essentially all of those different areas. So they have been in the recruiting process for that, and that process is moving forward with candidates coming for in-person interviews on July 1st and 2nd at Stout. So we have candidates and we're interviewing them, so it's good progress. It's always a slower process than you want it to be, but that's what it takes to do it right. So so the Economic Development Corporation has about $2,000 in its checking account. Obviously, there hasn't been too many expenses or too much revenue in the last year or so. They will be planning on requesting funding from, if you're unfamiliar, this committee oversees those external entities. So you will see that in the budget requests that Economic Development, Dunn County Economic Development is requesting funding. That funding is going to be requested. The purpose of that funding will go to fund Dunn County Economics portion of that employee. So that employee that is going to be at Stout, benefits are going to be paid by Stout, and the salary is going to be shared between Greater Menominee Economic Development and Dunn County Economic Development. So expect to see that coming. They're talking about that upstairs. So so you should be seeing that. I think it's next month that we'll start to see budget information coming. In addition to that, the City of Menominee and Dunn County, well, they're paying for those positions, obviously, and the two corporations, Greater Menominee Economic Development and I really struggle with these. Dunn County Economic Development are putting together a joint fundraising letter. So they're looking to do some external fundraising, targeting about $7,000 per organization. And that's to kind of cover those extra costs that are essentially required to run a business. The intent around any additional fundraising in addition to that is that everything else goes towards economic development. The whole point around funding these positions is that position can spend their time on economic development and not trying to make money to pay their salary. So I believe I stumbled through that enough. Yeah, any questions about kind of the status of that? But that's what we got next. Yeah, so Dunn County Communications, we've been continuing to get things out in the news. Ran a story last week about the status of the Highway B project. It's received some play out there. If you live and drive in this area, you experience that road. So they did open up for a little bit and then they had to close it back down. But that's a large project, one of the bigger, most expensive highway projects that we have done, Dunn County has done in many years. So big project, got the word out for that, and we continue to have more and more stories that we're working on, and they seem to be getting picked up amongst many of the additional media sources in the area. So continuing to, this is the well, we're in year 2 kind of this project, and I think it's been a very, very successful one that we've been doing. So, and that was the decision of this committee for those of you that weren't on it at the time. So, all right. Any questions? And once again, always looking for any stories that you can come up with. There is one coming for the fair. So broadband, I think last time we met, the BEAD challenge process was underway. That has, I believe, completed now. We did not have the need to make any challenges in Dunn County that we could identify, which is really good. I think we're still in a really good situation as it relates to that. I know there was some questions that we had about locations that were listed as being unserved that we kind of knew were served, and the providers in the area have worked with the Public Service Commission in order to get that information cleared up. So good news there. So the next step is we are back in the waiting game of waiting for the federal government to approve volume 2 of the BEAD process, which is the actual bidding on moving forward with actually bidding on projects or submitting projects. That process, as it is in draft form, requires, well, there's a 7 points. There's a total of 12 points for local government involvement in general. 7 of those points you can get by receiving a essentially a letter of support or well, it's going to require an official action of the county, and only counties can do that. So that is something that we're working with the Public Service Commission. If you're familiar, we created the Broadband Task Force, which is to do that, and we had plenty of conversations about giving that authority to do that to that committee. And so now we're kind of in discussions about, from the Public Service Commission, because we're not alone in this, that many counties had created those, and as the initial word came out, they said, well, it's going to require a resolution of the full board. And so, wow, we were trying to avoid that with this committee. Because, and that doesn't mean that we don't want the full board to be on board with that, but it takes a month and a half in order for these things to happen, and the timelines don't really align. So I reached out to Public Service Commission. They said, yeah, you're not alone in asking that question. So we're kind of waiting to hear back. But it is good news that there's, a lot of these awards, these grant awards, are decided by 1 or 2 points, and 7 of those points are put right on the county. That if we say no, they're probably not going to be getting it. So nice that we kind of have that level of local control and decision over that. So yeah.
And we've been successful, correct? In the round 1 in a pretty good way.
Well, in the earlier rounds, we have been very successful in receiving grants, and I know there's another one that's pending, one over in the Colfax area that Bloomer Broadband had applied for, and we have an additional grant that is also out. It's part of the state funding. Well, it's ARPA funding, but through the state. That is for digital navigators. So this is more of the not so much putting fiber in the ground, but working with the community and working with areas and trying to figure out how we can help get devices into people's hands and help them learn how to use those devices. So little preview for a meeting on Thursday for 2 of you. So and yeah, so the broadband committee meets on Thursday. My computer will tell me what time I have to be there.
Any more questions for Dan on that? Move on to Dunn County Tourism.
I just realized we missed item 6A.
Did we? Their extension director report.
6A,
Oh, 6A, what are we after?
budget. Oh, did it? Oh. Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll go with yours. So, all right. Yeah, Dunn County Tourism. So we had a discussion last week about the Visit Dunn County, or last month, about the Visit Dunn County website and kind of where that had come from. So I provided in a report to you kind of the status of the funding around that website and my knowledge of it getting started. I think the big thing from the funding standpoint is we have, from the original funding that was used to create that site, we have enough money to get us through this year and for some of 2025. But in order to maintain that site through 2025, we will be having to make a budget request in order to maintain that site as it is. So I think that being said, it's a time to talk and think about about where you are with that site. And one of the things that I guess I wanted to talk about and as it had come up is to really ask you all, what is your goal for that site? What is the intent that you want to get out of it? And what's that target audience that you're looking at, and what is it that you want them to do because they went to that site? And we'll get into a little bit of this because we did talk with the Explore Menominee folks as well, and I met with them, and Tammy's here and provided some information for you. So, but I think we did want to just kind of start with what is it that you want to get out of it, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think really it's just getting people to not only just Menominee, but everywhere else in the county, and showcasing places and businesses in other townships that don't really have much of a voice out there in what's available. And I'm sure there's plenty of businesses around in the county that could really benefit from seeing more people come through especially areas like any local parks, not just the state parks that exist. So.
So earlier today, I spent some time comparing the two websites, the visitduncounty.com and Explore Menominee. I was really surprised at how much duplication there is between the two, where tourism is concerned. And there are a lot of things that Explore Menominee does better. The event calendar in particular on visitduncounty.com for the rest of the summer is really only populated by two entities, the Mabel Tainer and Dragon Tail Books. And there's a lot more going on than that. And Explore Menominee has way more events right now. So let's see here. It seemed like there were a couple things that visitduncounty.com doesn't do that Explore Menominee does. So it has that section on economic development. And then it sort of seems to have like sort of community resources, like resources for people who are considering moving to Dunn County, right? So there's this section on local organizations, right? That isn't really tourism directed. It seems to be more of a community resource. So anyway, whatever direction we go, I feel like keeping those two entities alive in some sense, or that focus, that economic development focus in particular, having a home for that would be good. So those were kind of my observations.
Again, I can ditto that. I've noticed both of them are pretty much identical. What we're trying to do is get all of Dunn County. We could use Menominee, Dunn County, and economic development, all of them. I mean, just combine them. Can't we do it in one unit, or instead of having three different sites? Or
So I agree with everything everyone's just said. I think the problem back when we had the discussion was that so the Menominee, the chamber site is funded through the tourism tax, right? It's the hotel tax, yeah. And so there was for historically, there's been a reluctance to use those funds to do anything other than do in Menominee promotion. That seems to have, and also there were concerns that the chamber was inconsistent in maintaining staff on a regular basis. There's a lot of rotating staff. And so the feeling was that if we really want to have a website that's for the county, that we should look at a way to do it ourselves. And I think we came up with a pretty low cost way of doing that. But maybe now is the time, because I think the chamber has changed and we also have experience with it. I agree that it's time to think about how we can look for a better way. So for that.
I did want to just kind of point out, 'cause I don't think it was in my report, and I wasn't sure about it last time, but I will tell you that Your Web Choice, I did talk with them, and they do continue to maintain the site and are going to be adding content and doing the same level of maintenance that they had been doing over time. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that. And then I guess without any concerns, can we invite Tammy to come up and talk? Tammy's from Explore Menominee. And so she provided a document here for you. And I, after our last meeting, reached out to her and and we met and kind of talked through some things. So let her talk about it.
Thanks for allowing me to come in again to the meeting. As Dan said, we did have a little bit of an opportunity to talk about what the websites can look like, but I wanted to give you a little bit of background information first. So Explore Menominee is a program of the Menominee Area Chamber and Visitor Center. Our job is to market the city of Menominee to tourists and to visitors. In that vein, we also market the county already, because if anybody's staying or coming to Colfax or coming to Spring Valley or coming to these areas, they're staying in Menominee anyway. So most of the destinations and tourism organizations are are on our site, we do not exclude based on their membership status with the chamber. That's a weird line that some people kind of don't understand. So you need to be a chamber investor to receive benefits from the chamber. But because we are a completely different contract with the city, you do not have to be a chamber investor to receive benefits from Explore Menominee funds. So that is one of the biggest misconceptions that we run into. I've been in this position, I'm going on 3 years. And by far, that's the one thing that I've had to really explain is that we do market people in Dunn County because they're staying in Menominee if they come to visit Boyceville or Downsville or all the smaller communities. So we spend approximately $5,000 a month on digital advertising and driving traffic to our website. The industry professionals will talk over and over about how if we're going to market the area for people to come here, we have to go where they are, which means that newspaper articles and magazines, while extremely costly, do not actually, we don't have the ability to pay for all of those to reach them in Milwaukee and Racine and Madison and Green Bay and Superior and Minneapolis, which are the places that we actually target. So all of our marketing is outside of about a 75-mile radius. So you should never see what I'm doing unless we're talking about the community fireworks, because that is one community event that we support. So otherwise people say, I never see your advertising. Well, that's because we're doing it right. So another thing that I like to just clear up, we're working and we're spending plenty of money and we have stats now making some more data-driven decisions rather than, well, I think it'd be cool here, let's do it. So but we're coming into this at a very opportune moment because we are in the process of updating the Explore Menominee website. The project will start July 1st and be done by the end of the year. The reason for that is when I started this position 3 years ago, I was given a website that fit great at that point. But we've grown so much that we need to make some changes. And you mentioned the event widget that we have on there. We actually are installing a new one by July 1st that's more user-friendly. So if anybody in the community can put an event on there. But now you have to have maybe some SEO skills in order to do that. And I don't even know that mine are high enough to do that sometimes. We have other people who do it, but so we're really changing some of that, the event marketing especially, to be a easier, cleaner way for people to add events, but then also an easier way to find them. And then we're working on doing some huge optimizations on the website so that it's not, our load time's lower, and there's all kinds of things that we're doing. And then that big kind of redo project will start July 1st. So when we talked about it, in my opinion, the worst thing that we can do is do away with Visit Dunn County. By having that, and not necessarily the site, but having that URL, we're really kind of cross-referencing and trading SEO. So to remove that would be probably detrimental to us, because I know that, go ahead.
SEO is.
Search engine optimization. But in order for us to continue to move forward and to continue to get that word out, that visitdunncounty.com web address is very important to have. So whether you decide to do away with it completely or keep it or work with us, either way, we're going to benefit if you continue to maintain it. So, but because we're in the middle of this web upgrade, we are able to, if we decide to work this out, we can actually fold some of the duties into what we're already doing. So most of the stuff that we're doing with our big project this year is changing our menus just so that it matches SEO, Google AdWords better. And that is all a very technical equation that I probably couldn't explain if I had 3 hours with you. It's a weird thing that changes by the minute. So, when we talked about it, really the opportunity looks like if we merge the two sites, it would be Dunn. So if somebody went to visit Dunn County, it would actually redirect to a URL that says Explore Menominee /visit Dunn County, and it would have its own kind of spot on our page. So we would take the information that's already on it. We would add more. We would refine it, and then we'd put that in as part of the Dunn County page on our website. That means that we would maintain that Visit Dunn County, and that would mean that that would have its own kind of section of our website. The other option is for us to just remove the current site as is. We would still redirect visitduncounty.com to explore Menominee, but it would just be another part of our menu. So it wouldn't be necessarily called out. But what I envision is if we go with the first choice is that we put Visit Dunn County as one of our menus on our leader menu. And when you drop down that, it talks about the other locations or the other communities, because I think that was one of the things that we really were interested in, is making sure that people know that these other tiny communities exist and there's tourism opportunities in those smaller burgs outside of Menominee. So they're both viable options. And the reason we talked about, if you look in there, the cost for one of them is $4,000. The other one is $1,500. We really are looking at just offering this as a discounted rate because we feel like the partnership's important, and we can fold part of that into our existing website plan. So we're doing this at a great time. And I don't know if you guys have any questions regarding it.
And maybe you don't want to share, but I guess I'm putting you on the spot if you don't. Did you want to talk about some of your thoughts around expansion of the?
Yes, I would love to. So at this point, we collect hotel tax dollars from hotel entities and short-term stay entities in the city of Menominee. What this would offer us the ability to do, and the reason we're looking at really kind of trying to do this, is that when you look at Tainer Lake and you look at Downsville, those municipalities do not have a room tax. So the support of this website really would not fall on the county then, it would fall on those municipalities who have short-term rentals there. So right now in the area, there's about 32 short-term rentals, which is an Airbnb or a VRBO. We currently can only collect room tax on 4 of them, I believe. And those are because they're in the city of Menominee. So what we're looking at doing within 2025 is really branching out and talking to those municipalities about them collecting a hotel tax. What that looks like is they would collect that hotel tax, which the city of Menominee is 7%. So they would collect that 7% or 8%, whatever they decided to make it. And then by state statute, they're required to pay out 70% of that to a destination management organization or destination marketing organization, which is Explore Menominee. So what it would do is get us some income to support that website, but it would also bring in a little bit of income. I'm not saying it's millions of dollars. It's probably more like thousands, if that, but it would really support the website, but it would also bring in a little bit of income and revenue for those small villages and cities outside of Menominee. So that really is the goal. As you said, it's completely supported by hotel room tax right now, but knowing that is our kind of move forward, that is an opportunity for us to actually put these funds into the website and make it more of a Dunn County, visiting Dunn County tourism website. So. Yep.
Places like wedding barns or Jake's or somebody that has a music schedule, do they find their way on the website?
They do. So we regularly do articles. So there should be an article on the Explore Menominee site right now that just lists all the places that do live music. And it's Jake's Supper Club. We include, when Elk Point has live music, we put those on our calendar, but we also include that information in our newsletters of any upcoming events, any destinations, anything new. We regularly promote Govin's Farm. We regularly promote Scatterbrain Cafe because it's a cool little place down in Downsville. The trails are regularly promoted, whether they're here in Menominee or outside. We are actively involved in the Rural Partners Network. We're looking at, we're part of a 7-county partnership that is working on making the Chippewa Valley an outdoor recreation mecca, I guess is what they're calling. But I've been actively involved in that discussion, and we have received grant funds to do some studies. But a lot of this really, it's not, instead of what you might have seen before where it's all right here central in Menominee, we realize the value of cooperating and collaborating with those people outside of the city limits.
And again, I don't use this, but the trail system that is at Downsville and goes along the river and everything like that.
Mhm.
Does that hook up with Eau Claire?
It does, it hooks up with Chippewa and Eau Claire counties, but there's some spots that are a little bit rough based on the ownership of it.
Yeah.
And that's part of what this Rural Partners Network is looking to do, is really make sure the wayfinding signs are there and make sure that the upkeep of the trail is there, and to make a kind of a coalition of trails
Yeah.
here in the Chippewa Valley, so.
Because that wild country actually is an asset.
It is.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't want to bring my the entirety of my hometown, but
Mhm.
Door County.
Yep.
I know Door County has a lot of towns and villages and cities. I think, I mean, at least just counting over 10 of
Yep.
them. And I know we have 8 villages, I'm just looking at the map, and a few other towns that look to be sort of scattered in there.
Mhm.
I know that there is no quite one website, or I guess chamber is the best way to describe it, for each town in Door County. But on the Destination Door County website, which is their tourism,
Mhm.
they do everybody.
Right.
They have specifically they have sections of like places to stay, things to do,
Mhm.
places to eat. But one of them is just discover, and then they have local communities, and it's every single community. And I think it would be beneficial for us to kind of adopt that similar, if not the same sort of mindset, of just everybody gets a place, and if they have a choice, they don't, because they should be there.
Mhm.
I think, and it's important that we get those places. Just even if that landing site is just a little blurb about the community, I think it's a great place to start for those communities to start growing and to help support that.
Right, and that's the direction we're moving in. We talked earlier about where the funding comes from, and because we're opening up a little bit more and working together with the county, and there's just a lot of partnerships that have been developed. It's really helping us to be able to say, okay, now we're going to go to these municipalities and ask for support. It's not going to be a ton of support, but it's going to be support, and that means that we can actually actively market them to other locations. So well, we're never going to be what Door County is, because they have a $8 million budget and mine is 350,000 right now. We really can work to include them on our website especially. So that's a good point. It just hadn't happened yet. And that's kind of what we're moving towards.
I think the other thing that would be nice, because as far as I'm aware, and I could be wrong, but as far as room tax goes, I'm pretty sure that applies to the whole county. So I think being able to spread that here would certainly help. And then also, I guess, when you start bringing people to these communities, they're going to have to, they might be more inclined to get to put places in place for people to stay. And I think that would really also help just drive that growth.
Right, right. I think we need to a lot of it is just looking at a bigger picture than what we are right now. But to do that, we have to get that room tax from those outside communities. So it's a good start for us right now. We're looking to grow just because we do have someone in place for an extended amount of time, and we are in a position where this makes sense for the county and for the city.
Any further discussion?
Just looking at the website, is the county fair advertised on there?
It is. It's
It
on
is?
there as an event, yes.
Didn't see it. Okay.
And then it actually goes out in our newsletter on Tuesday. Actually next Thursday, the newsletter will go out. There's a blurb about the Dunn County Fair and what's going on that day. So, yeah, we actively try to promote all the events we can find. Let's Paint the Towns on there several times, and that's in our newsletter. It's also in our social media. Social media is where we have a ton of event updates. It's almost daily we're posting there with things coming up so we can bring people into town.
Even on our Dunn County website, that has tourism. I don't know if you ever looked under that one. The county is on, the county fair is on that one as well, so. Any other comments, questions? Further discussion?
So when do you want a decision?
Our project starts July 1st, but if we can get a decision by August 1st, we'll be fine. Right now, we're really, those preliminary starts that we're doing has to do with a lot of menu changing and honestly just changing out widgets so we have better optimization.
So just to be, if we were to go with the, say, merge sites, which is, it seems like that's your recommendation.
Either one of these two is our recommendation. What I don't want to see happen is for us not to have that Visit Dunn County one anymore. It's valuable information and it really kind of gears us up for the future. If we remove it, we remove a lot of that search engine optimization and add keywords that we use in our marketing as well.
Could this, I guess if we do the consumption of the site, might that be a possible avenue to possibly refranchise as more of a, I guess, explore Dunn County sort of idea to, I guess, help encourage that growth outside of just Menominee?
To be honest, not in the near future. I've already shared, we have about a $350,000 budget that comes from the hotel room tax here in Menominee. And I'm guessing if we do hotel room tax in neighboring communities, it's probably going to be more about $10,000. So really it doesn't support a merging or a rebranding, but it definitely does support some more communication. One of the plans we have for the new website is under the Discover or Adventures section. We'll actually have what to do on a day trip when you go to Spring Valley or Downsville or Colfax or Boyceville or Oak Mound. So we are reaching out on that, but I don't know that any overarching branding would change within the next probably 2 to 3 years at least.
I guess, the time frame is kind of more so just, it helps to sort of set that ball rolling of like, maybe we should really start thinking about being a larger thing. So I think just in I don't know if the two options that are presented are like the only two options, but I think certainly doing the best to make it most cost efficient and then also really try to make it more of a family sort of environment.
Just to be clear about the costs. Yep. So under merge sites, well, you got 4,000 and you got a discounted rate of 2,000. 4,000 is the cost?
That is the cost that we were estimated, but we are going to wrap it up into our other projects. So we're able to get that cost down to about $2,000. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And what would there be an annual?
No, what that would end up happening is it's going to exist under our URL. We already pay a website company a certain amount of money per month for maintenance, for optimization, and for basically we pay them to check it every day to make sure it's working. And we do a lot of the updates. So between me and the marketing coordinator, we do the majority of the updates and the majority of posting on the website. So this would all be kind of wrapped into what we already pay as our monthly fee for the website. It doesn't matter if we add more pages, we still just pay that same amount for them to check.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, Monica.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, to me, this sounds like a no-brainer. So if we were to continue the current website in the way that it is, so I'm understanding that would be an ongoing cost of about $3,600 a year. Whereas if we do this partnership, I'm understanding that this would be a one-time cost. And either option would be cheaper than that. So we're talking about either $2,000 or $750. And it sounds like it's going to be a better site. So I think that this sounds great. But I did have one question. So keeping the domain, visitdunncounty.com, that's cheap, right? That's like $50, $100 a year, something like that?
It's probably not even that.
Okay.
The one discussion point I did want to bring up is if we do decide to move forward, is there an opportunity? Is there an opportunity for us to purchase that domain, or would the county keep it and we would just have a memo of understanding? Okay.
Could we, I was gonna say, I think it would be from my experiences more specifically with registrar Cloudflare, but being able to just purchase it from, I guess, I would imagine that your web choice would be the one who currently owns the domain or registers the domain.
Yeah, we can get it transferred.
So if we just do that and then it's not really sell the domain to you guys, but kind of have that, I guess, that mutual agreement, like we're giving you the domain in exchange for the wonderful services that you provide. Also, I guess another comment would be, what would be stopping us from making this decision now?
It's not an action item.
Yeah, we can't do it today, but we can bring it up. It'll be on the agenda for next month, or we could do a special meeting if we had to, I guess, either way. But you would take care of all the, putting it all together and everything, is that, so nobody, putting work on somebody else is, all right, so you guys think about this. We'll put it on the agenda. Melissa's already got that down. All right. So I had on my schedule, it was 6E instead of 6A. So, all right. Budget considerations discussion.
All right, this is what keeps us here long. So a couple of you have gone through this. Chris and I had talked along with Kelly about how we want to kind of go around budget discussions as we move forward, and making sure that we have, full board input as administration and the executive committee kind of put together how the budget is going to move forward. So I would tell you right now, at the budgets is in the state where departments are working on their budgets and haven't even submitted them to administration. That being said, we have a pretty good idea of what it is that we're going to be expecting. So we provided this document, the budget considerations. Sorry, I forgot my outline. And I wanted to just kind of make sure, so I want you to kind of focus on this one. I did provide a list of departments in there, and that's, as you look through that, there's some sections that say operations. So I want to make sure that you know, when we talk about operations, that's what operations are, specifically as it relates to these funding sources. The other thing is, if you're familiar with our budget, we have about a $90 million budget, and you'll see that this one is showing you last year at about, was it 36.6? So that budget is made up of really the direct taxes to Dunn County residents, right? So that's your state sales tax, your county sales tax, and the levy of the county. And then we do have the borrowing in ARPA that kind of filled in the top in 2024. So I want to just kind of start that out. Does this document, this graph, make sense to you? Do you have any questions before we kind of move on to the next prompting question?
I'm sorry.
Yep.
This is a basic question, and I know you addressed it. I missed it. So the budget is approximately $90 million total.
Correct.
And these bars are adding up to 39 million, 40 million.
Yep.
Why different?
So the rest of that budget is made up of like fees, or so like the neighbors of Dunn County, their funding comes from the residents of the neighbors of Dunn County paying them, right? So that isn't a tax, that's a fee. So it's not something that's within the control of really anybody to determine what that is. The other thing that's not in there is a lot of like our state grants or federal grants that we receive. Once again, not something that we really control. We control whether we apply for them, but we can't say, hey, give us more. Those numbers are kind of fixed. So when you look at this, the control that we have from a revenue standpoint is the levy. Even the state aid is related to sales tax. It's last year was it last year? In the last budget cycle, the state government tied our state aids to sales tax. So if the state does good in sales tax, our state aid goes up. If the state does bad in sales tax, our state aid goes down. And then the county sales tax is obviously really the same thing, other than the fact that it's only purchases made in Dunn County. So these are really more of those controllable things. And when you talk about taxes, yes, federal grants and all of that are your taxes. But these are the ones that Dunn County controls, mainly the levy being that tax.
Okay, that makes sense. So for example, transit, like the whole of transit is just not here.
Yep.
Got it.
And they're not even listed in they better not be listed. Yeah. in the departments, because they're not funded by Dunn County funds.
Okay, thank you.
They just kind of manage through here. Yep.
And highway projects are separate from maintenance. These are construction projects.
They are. So I actually provided a little bit of it because that's our next kind of the first discussion point. And so if that graph makes sense, I will move on kind of to that next discussion point. I do want to point out, as the graph is kind of put together, you'll see that debt levy corresponds with debt service. Debt service is how much we pay because of every year, because we borrowed so much money. This is how much we have to pay our the people we borrowed the money from, right? And the debt levy is the levy that goes towards paying that. And it is kind of special because it is not limited. So, yep. And then so as you move on up, you'll kind of see where levy kind of corresponds with operations costs. And then we throw in some things. So some of the considerations that we wanted to do is just kind of put this out here. And this is the question of really asking you, and I have a marker, so I'm going to start writing on the board as you come up with considerations. So what are some of the considerations that you feel should be taken into account when talking about reducing or eliminating the funding for highway projects? So, and this is where, what is a highway project? So highway projects are typically for instances where old pavement is removed or ground down and replaced with new pavement. Okay, so there's other activities like filling potholes or chip sealing, reconditioning shoulders, things like that. That's maintenance. When we talk about projects or construction, we're talking about kind of taking out a road and putting in a new one. And in some cases, those are state matches. So we talked about the County B project. It's actually two projects. One of them is a 60-40 match and the other one is an 80-20. And so that's just where the state is paying a portion of that and the county is paying a portion of that. So some of those are a little bit different in how they go, but some of those projects that we do are just purely funded by the county. So this area here, which we're looking at 7 million, represents kind of what the highway commissioner is expecting it to cost for us to maintain doing construction projects to maintain a 20-year life cycle on our roads. We're currently in the 40s. So that being said, and we always like to say that that's what we ask him to do. He is saying this is the best practice to do a 20-year life cycle. These are the projects that we would have to do in order to maintain that type of work. So that being said, the question is, what do you think are considerations or things that we should think about as far as if you were to reduce the amount of money for highway projects? What are those impacts, or what are the things that you should be considering as that happens?
Do we currently, I guess that would be more so a question of whoever's in charge, but about kind of doing you pay what for the quality of the thing that you put in, and so putting in roads and stuff, surfaces with the intention of a sustainable, like more robust or easier to maintain surfaces in that. I guess the consideration is how that would impact using those materials versus decreasing that, and we have to repave a surface where we're kind of forced into the cheaper option, which might degrade significantly faster than something if we were to have spent the money and time to make sure that it was done
Right.
well.
So that is something that's factored in. Those are all projects. So I put in that kind of that grind and then kind of resurface. They call that reconditioning. That has a much shorter lifetime than taking everything down, redoing all of the place, and then putting the ground back in place. So those are some of the considerations that they do put into choosing that. So yeah, so we put that up there. That would be a way of decreasing those costs. You could decrease those costs, but it has an impact.
So you're looking for positive, negative type thing?
We really struggled with the positive negative on the,
I'm trying
on the
something
last
different
time
this time?
around.
Okay.
That's why we went away. But I think that is, I guess you can kind of bring that out as to, we can consider the projects and how long of a lifetime you're creating versus the cost. I guess, is that what I'm hearing? We'd be looking at 25. Yeah, so 24 is the reference, and that's how the 24 budget kind of came out, right? So if we take out the rest of it, now we're looking at that 25, and you'll see that the funding does not match the expenses, right? That, I'm saying that there's a potential that this is what the budget would look like. And so that's where, and we'll get to that. I have some questions specifically about each of those 3 bullets, but we were going to start right now with the highway. And so, so
I think what they're after, Larry, is just to balance the budget. Do we cut the budget to them so they, so we get the balanced budget? Do we cut or do we keep it, maintain it?
Well,
Is that right?
use your button.
isn't a budget consideration covering all these areas? And, for example, maybe I should say, we should, take 10% away from every operational area and move it over to highway. I mean, is that what you're asking from me?
Right now, I'm just asking if Dustin has said it's going to cost us about $7 million in highway projects this year to maintain a 20-year life cycle of our highways. So if you were to decrease that, what are the good or bad things that come about that? So one of the good things about that is it would cost less.
Okay. How about if I said to you, like I just said, how about if I said to you, we should increase the highway projects and we should fund it by taking money away from Andrea and the libraries and medical examiner and public health at a certain percentage. You know, I mean, I think you're gonna sooner or later run into a problem as the board evolves, that people are not going to be happy borrowing even 3 million. And at the last board meeting, listening to Chris, I got the feeling that she was looking to go to 4 or 4.5 million in borrowing. Because if you increase the county expenses, whatever it is what costs to do, you have to either borrow the money or you have to go to the property taxpayer and say, we need a little more, we need a few more dollars from you. I mean, there's no other sources, is there?
Nope.
So, okay. So I'm
So-
suggesting to you
Yep.
that you might have a hard time borrowing $3 million. And you know, everybody has their needs. And everybody has their priorities.
Yep.
And it seems to me that highway is picked out here as because we can all understand what good or bad roads are, but we really don't understand if Corp Council really needs an assistant. We can't understand that. We can't see what work they do. We don't know if having a third branch in the courts is a good thing for Dunn County. I mean, we've got it now. They asked for it forever and ever. Facilities, I mean, you know, they got a busted door at the fairgrounds that they didn't fix. Or, I mean, could we say, well, you know, facilities, you're gonna have to get by with less money because we want to improve our roads.
Yep.
So I
So-
don't have
Yeah.
any suggestions. It's just that I just think that picking out highway. Or go ahead, I don't
Well,
get it.
Yeah, I think it's hard, a little bit hard to get, and that's kind of what we're trying to do is
Yep.
figure out how to get it.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure that I agree with, or like, I don't really like this. I'm sure that Dan doesn't like doing this either, but can we trust the process just for a little while before we get into
No,
the
that's fine
bigger
with
kind
me.
of questions
Yeah.
and see how it works?
Yeah.
Because I think what we're trying to do is figure out how strong are the priorities that we have in different areas. And if we end up having to cut, is there any kind of consensus that we have about where we might want to look and why we might want to look there? And that's what you're getting at, kind of.
Well,
But
yeah.
so how do you have that discussion in a way that doesn't piss each of us off, you know? And
Well, I suppose everybody has an area that they're familiar with and concerned about.
yeah,
And you know, you picked out highway.
this is the first one. We're gonna
Yeah,
get
we're
to the
gonna
other
have-
ones.
we're
too.
gonna have a
Yep,
sheet
we're
for
good.
every-
This is the
Oh,
first
that's
one.
okay.
That's what I'm talking about,
Okay.
trust the process a little.
Well, I didn't know
okay?
that was the process.
Well, you gotta listen a little
Yeah.
bit.
Well, I'm sorry, I
Yep.
didn't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, so the first question is, what are the considerations if you did not do as many highway, as much of that highway or any of it whatsoever? So what are the good and bad things that could happen?
Well, one, it's not whether it's good or bad, but highway, unfortunately, has a time frame that allows the budget to have a little more flexibility than some of the other budgets have. So you can say, well, we're going to spend 6 million this year, but next year, you know, we're gonna have to do 8. I mean, you can do that. You can't do that with some other departments. So flexibility, I think, is.
I think to kind of go on with that is sort of take that look at what the projects are and kind of go through and like if there's one, you know, like 1 mile road that needs to be redone, but it's not a heavily trafficked road. I think we could probably go another year, kind of not necessarily ignoring the issues, but being able to like prioritize like what are the important roads that do need to get refinished and then come back to those other roads in a more timely manner, I think is.
Hope you can read it. I'm gonna have to read it at some point in the future, but it's,
Do a,
uh,
you could also do a cheaper, instead of patching, just patching, you could just do an overlay on it instead of grinding it, and do the whole thing just to get by another couple of years.
term fixes. Work. I
But isn't it kind of the case that, yeah, you can kick the can down the road for a certain amount of time, but eventually that debt comes due? And isn't it the case that things will end up being more expensive in the long run if you use this as a long-term strategy?
Clearly, yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
I have this burning question, which is I've heard that what's hard for Dunn County is that we have a large number of roads for the number of residents. Has it ever been considered decommissioning some of our roads? Like, so we come into more like the norm for a rural county as opposed to being like, wow, we have a lot of roads. Has that ever come up or? I know that's
we can write it down. This is what it is what are those different things that we can look at? So
I guess, yeah, that
you
would
know,
be.
decommissioning. I don't know if it's possible.
Just abandon some roads that aren't, no houses on it or something, but if there's one house on it, you can't do that.
I think that might be like a neat survey to do of like what the condition of all of our roads are. What, I guess, sort of the status of those roads, who's on them, if there's anybody on them. And then to kind of go through and sort of go through that list of what needs to be done, and kind of build out maybe like a 5-10 year plan of those sort of highway projects to be able to not necessarily move the cost down the road, but to kind of move the cost down the road, or like just redistribute everything so that it's a lot less cost over a longer period of time.
Yep. So that is done. There's a survey of the roads, the level at which they are. There's different grades of how good, bad of shape they're in, how old they are, what their travel rate is, all of that information in the plan. And there is a 10-year plan for the replacement. So this accounts for 1 year of the 10-year plan. So, and that's once again based on a 20-year life cycle. So.
Dan?
Mhm.
I haven't had the experience or had you've done this already, executive committee, so some people have heard this before, I haven't.
Yep.
But as far as highways concerned,
Mhm.
I would give them what they want plus $1 million. And I'd go right to the taxpayer and ask for them to pay for it. So, that's how I feel.
All right.
I think that's not necessarily a bad mindset either I mean, our highways need fixing and we're the ones who drive on those highways and deteriorate them. So why should we not pay to maintain those as citizens of Dunn County. I think that's a great point, Larry.
So you mentioned it's awkward to do this in the vacuum of not having as much information as you'd like to have. But you mentioned that there is a plan. The plan includes considerations for how much the condition of the roads, but also how much they're traveled.
Yes.
So it's not an option to say, well, we don't have to have 20-year lifespans on all of our county roads. We only need them on the priority county roads that would do what Luis is talking about, which just bring us down to a more average level of highway miles. That's not a consideration.
That is certainly something that can.
It's already been considered?
Oh, I don't know that it's already been considered. But I think that is.
Okay.
That is a thing that we can talk about that could decrease.
So prioritization, I would call it,
Decent.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have it up there?
Yeah, that plan is
Okay.
all put together through all of that work, but it's all planned on, well, we're going to maintain this at the level
All
that
the
it,
roads are
that
gonna be
it, that
maintained
it
at the
is,
same level
right?
with how,
Well, or at the appropriate level for where they are, right? So obviously County B, right, on 94 over here that serves, Walmart distribution and Anderson's distribution plant and all of that, that's a different road than somewhere else.
And
Yep.
we all make our assumptions from what we've seen and heard. That's what makes everybody different. But I live on, I think they call it a commuter road, County Trunk E, from Eau Claire County line at Elk Lake to US 12 and then into Menominee. And E had a big facelift. They widened it. They made the shoulders. Ag equipment now can run on that road on the shoulder for at least with one tire, and it's constant. People commuting to and from work from Eau Claire either choose County Road E, Highway 12, or 94. And I've talked to people, says, how do you get to Menominee? A lot of them say take County Trunk E, but it's a dangerous intersection where it hits Highway 12. So you talk about the usage of roads. I have to support dollars spent on roads because number one, I'm an ag person, and ag commodities have to move to and from the market. Inputs come in on the roads, crops go out on the roads, tillage equipment operates the roads. People drive from Eau Claire to Menominee for jobs. We talk about our housing numbers. Well, you know, a lot of housings in Eau Claire, a lot of jobs are in Menominee, and I think there's statistics that show just exactly what that is. So I can't tell you anything about road activity between Boyceville and Wheeler because I don't have any experience with it. But what I see on roads and how vital they are to economic Dunn County, you know, that's where I draw my conclusion. And I'm dead serious when I say we ought to spend more and we ought to ask the taxpayer to pay for it. So whether you want to write that down or not.
Well, you're moving on to the next step.
I am.
So,
Well, I don't know.
I know we want to make sure that we get all of the considerations, and there's one I know that had come up with at exec that and maybe this is just how that question is focused, but part of the consideration is you're all elected. So the decreasing of funding, how does that impact the people that you represent?
I think maybe another kind of to add on to that prioritization and decommissioning is maybe even looking at what roads we can, why does it need to be a through road to another road that has one that's maybe not even a mile away from it? Kind of where if somebody does live on that road, maybe we can just cut it off towards the less traveled direction, and kind of do, if not do a full decommission of the road because somebody lives on that road,
Yep.
maybe. Right, where other people could still build houses on that road and possibly extend it in the future, but right now, we don't need to maintain the whole road, so.
So those are, yeah.
I would be surprised if Dunn County could abandon roads without some input from the state of Wisconsin. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe you
and
can and maybe you can't.
I have no idea what it is. This is, as I say, seeking the input of the board about what are some of those things that we should think about if we were to decrease funding. These are some ways that maybe we can go about decreasing and doing less.
I think to also decrease funding is in decommissioning those roads. Obviously, we're grinding up pavement and stuff, and a lot of that is renewable resource that we could use that to sort of provide for the whatever pavement resource that we need for the roads that do really need attention that are heavily trafficked. So we can kind of, take part of the road and just sort of place it elsewhere. In essence.
All right, I'm gonna move us on to the next question. So the next, unless there was more. All right, okay, all right. So, so the next thing we want you to do is you should have a yellow Post-it note and 2 blue ones. On your yellow Post-it note. So after we have that discussion, and Larry, I don't have your answer on the scale, but I want you to write like HWI on the top of that, and then on the scale of 0 being do no projects, essentially we're not going to do any highway projects. 5 being do similar to last year, and 10 do what the highway commissioner is recommending. Where do you fall on that scale? You're 11. That'll work. Yep. All right. And if you just want to hold on to that, the next item that we're going to go over is, so what consideration should be taken into account when reducing or eliminating funding for salary increases? So this is our $1 million. So just so you're aware, when we talk about salary increases, we essentially have 2 different ways that we apply salary increases. One of them is a grid adjustment, and we typically do both of them. One is a grid adjustment. So if you're familiar with our salary grid, it has all of those places. So the grid adjustment actually moves the numbers on the grid. And what that does is that is an increase that applies to all employees in Dunn County because everybody is on the grid. And it also changes our new starting wage because we increased the bottom of the grid that actually increased our starting wage. So it kind of helps us in that competitive market moving forward. The next piece is our merit raises or steps. So steps is something that somebody with a good review, it moves up a step every year on an 11-step scale. When they hit step 11, there's no more steps for them. So the difference with the step raise is that it doesn't apply to everybody because if people are at the top step, they don't get that. They would get the grid adjustment, but they don't get the step. And that helps us in equity, essentially years of service or experience is really what that is demonstrating. So that's just for your reference so that you know when we talk about salary increases, that's what it is. This $1 million is an estimate of what it would cost if we were to plot. And this is just employees that are funded by the levy, not people that are in grants and things like that. that $1 million is essentially based on a 2% grade adjustment plus steps. So question being, what are some of the considerations to be taken into account? So what are the impacts of not providing raises?
It makes it more difficult to hire and retain quality staff.
Anything else?
I really did not understand your graph. I thought salaries and benefits, that $1 million had to do with highway.
No.
So pardon me for that. I did not understand.
Yep.
Morale.
Efficiency.
It might impact being able to keep up with the change in inflation, where people's wages, if they don't increase, inflation's still going up.
Tell you what I wrote, employee hardship. That work for you? All right. All right, go ahead.
I wonder, okay, so if you create more employee hardship, then those employees will be using more of the county services that are aimed at helping people who are struggling with money. So
All right. Any other considerations?
Well, one of the, I mean, I suppose there's a, if we were to, at some point, we just keep raising wages and we don't have sufficient revenue, there would be a cut, we would have to cut positions.
Do I write that one? Increased employee costs might lead to layoffs. Right? Right. All right. We good with that? All right. Do you want to go to one of your blue ones? And we are going to kind of do the same thing there. Just put like wages or salary or something to let us know that you're not talking about highways. So this is going to be that same 0 to 10 scale. 0 being wages should be frozen, essentially no increase. 10 being full increase. So final question are some of the considerations to be taken into account when reducing or eliminating funding for operations. So operations is just the term that we're kind of using here to talk about all of these departments that I showed you there. And when I say departments, that's not paying fully for those departments. Those are departments that in some way, shape or form use the levy. So some of them might use it as like 30% of their budget. Some of them might be 100% of their budget. So, but ultimately, they are dependent on the levy for their operations. Operations being the salary and fringe of their employees, plus any supplies or things that they buy. So wanted to just kind of point out, if you want to do the math in your head, you can, but their supplies are about 1/3 of the operations cost, with 2/3 of that being salary and fringe. And when you get the final budget numbers, don't hold any of these against us. These are get you in the ballpark of where we are. So, any considerations to be taken into account in reducing the funding for operations? So this is the stuff that we do right now.
I guess decreasing funding would result in possibly losing a lot of beneficial services that people depend heavily on, like Louise's work and everybody else at UW Extension.
Quality of the employee applying for these jobs, I guess, if they have any one of these.
It's kind of hard to make generalizations here because it depends so much on like what supplies we're talking about. Like, so if we're talking about IT, right, and we're talking about, well, maybe we can extend the usage of our laptops for another year, right? Well, that messes up productivity because the laptops are slower and more of a pain in the butt to maintain, and then it becomes a cybersecurity problem, et cetera. I mean, so there's all that, but like for every department, there's just different considerations. So I'm having a hard time generalizing.
Yeah, and I can tell you that our supply costs have maintained an almost zero change for many years. Any increases in operations, I would say, in the last 3 years have all been in the salary and fringe. Because you give a raise, right? We've increased salary and fringe, but we're not necessarily increasing operations.
So like if we were to adjust for inflation, the amount that we're spending is going down, right? It's not even that we're maintaining, we're already cutting.
I would agree that that's likely true.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it makes it harder for people to do their jobs. I mean,
If you cut anything, let's say parks or something like that, that's a plus for the county. Because people like to go to the parks and swim, and if you cut them, they don't have the money to upkeep. I don't know how you do that, but yeah.
Yeah.
It would be a,
Well, we would lose revenue in some of these areas. If we fail to provide the service, we would lose the revenue that comes in for those services.
All right. So, if there isn't any more, we're gonna go on that same scale. So 0 in this case is going to be a large cut to operations. We're gonna define large as greater than $1 million. And 10 being to maintain operations. And I won't torture you all with budget information until your next committee meeting, where you get to do this all over again. So for those of you like, what, Bob and Tom, you're gonna get 3 times. You can see how well it evolves over. So, yeah, well, we worked on it. So, yep. So that's all I have.
As Dan is doing that, no considerations by the community and resources. Any announcements? Next meeting scheduled Tuesday, July 16th. Well, motion to adjourn? Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned.